Do you want a powerful 16-inch laptop that's still very thin? Get the Zephyrus G16. But what if this thing is just a bit too flashy for you? I mean, it might raise some eyebrows in the office. Well, that's exactly why this thing exists. The Asus ProArt P16. It's got all the good things of the Zephyrus, with a couple of handy professional tools added on top. It's basically the more serious brother that went to college. But is it actually any good? Well, let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, this thing is perfect for college or a professional work environment. It has minimal branding and is about as low-key as it gets. It's literally just a black laptop. But it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. This thing has a full aluminum body with a black coating. It's built incredibly well and feels super sturdy, so it can probably take a couple of drops. And despite these materials, it's still very lightweight. You can easily use this thing one-handed and on the move. It's also nice and thin, so you're not gonna get any gaming laptop allegations from some gigantic vents on the back. But it might as well be a gaming laptop, because this thing is packed with high specs. With one of the best current laptop CPUs and an RTX 5070, it should handle basically anything. It's got high power limits for its GPU, but it might be limited by its VRAM, since Nvidia wants you to spend more money on higher tier GPUs. And it does have higher tier options, up to an RTX 5090. So if you want something a bit more future-proof or with more VRAM, I would go with those models. Oh, and because this laptop has a new chip, it's also one of the first ones to support Microsoft Recall. I would rather die, no thank you. For its port selection, it's got basically everything you need, even a full-size SD card slot, but unfortunately no Ethernet jack. It does have a decently sized power brick, since powerful components do need a lot of juice, but it can also charge through USB-C, so if you've got a smaller 100-watt brick, that works as well. Oh, by the way, for the people asking, using this thing as a docked PC with its screen closed is not really recommended. Its cooling system is designed to operate with an open display, so keep that in mind. Okay, now onto its keyboard. This might look very familiar to Zephyrus owners. It's essentially the same keyboard and trackpad, which is definitely not a bad thing, unless you really like numpads, in which case, sorry. It does have a backlight with 3 different brightness settings, but it's only in a white color, which for this laptop is actually a positive. Remember, it's trying to look professional. The keys themselves feel excellent. They're pretty quiet, but still give satisfying feedback. And it's also got good key travel. These are not MacBook keys. The FN lock is turned on by default, so its function keys act as media keys on boot up. But you can change this in settings, so that doesn't really matter. And now for the trackpad. As you can see, this thing is huge. Definitely one of the biggest you can get. It's made of glass, so it feels premium. And the clicks are satisfying, but not too loud. It's simply a great trackpad to use when you don't have a mouse. But what's that little nipple in the corner here? Well, if you swipe from the top right corner of the trackpad, you'll activate it. This is called the Asus Dial. It basically acts as a rotatable macro key for creative apps. By default, it only has some basic functions like volume and brightness control, but if you use certain applications that support it, you get some really handy shortcuts for your workflow. You might need to get used to softly caressing a bumpy circle while you're editing, but once you get used to it, it's actually super handy. I think artists might use this a lot in drawing software, but I wouldn't really know. I'm not really a Picasso. Now, one of the most important parts about a device made for creative work is its display. If you're making stuff for other people to see, you need to make sure it looks good and accurate on your device. And on this screen, you will have absolutely no issues. With a 3K 120Hz OLED display, this might be the best display you can get on a laptop. Is what I would say if this thing didn't have even higher spec options. On some models, it actually has a 4K OLED display with a peak brightness of 1600 nits. And that thing is the best display on a laptop. I personally don't have it, but that's about as bright as laptop displays can get. It's actually really nice that they gave this thing 120 Hz. Most office laptops have 60 Hz displays, and in my opinion, that just looks slow. But with this guy, you can even comfortably play games smoothly. Hell, even fast-paced games like CS2 look great on it. And it is an OLED, so you're getting beautiful, accurate colors with high contrast and perfect inky blacks. There's really nothing like it. Except maybe mini LED, but that's a discussion for another time. It also gets plenty bright at 500 nits, so you can easily use it outside. But that 1600 nit variant is obviously on a whole nother level. Other than that, there's really nothing you can't do on this display. Editing, gaming, and even watching movies will look awesome on here. Oh, and it's also got a touchscreen, which is actually pretty rare for these higher-end displays. It also has a pretty good anti-reflective layer, so you won't get blinded if you sit next to a window, but it definitely is more reflective than the one on the Zephyrus. I'm guessing this is because of that touch layer on the P16. Now, as for its hinge, it doesn't open up super far, unfortunately. Its discontinued little brother, the PX13, had a 360-degree hinge, but that does come with its own issues. And I'm really sad that the Flow X13 got shanked. I loved that little thing. The P16's hinge is also nice and sturdy to open and close, but it does wobble a bit if you tap on it. However, this is not an issue during normal use. But professional work can also be audio related. So how are this thing's speakers? They are amazing. It's got the same speakers as on the Zephyrus lineup, which means basically the best speakers on any laptop right now. So you've got great sounding top firing speakers, as well as very punchy subwoofers on the bottom. It's also got surround sound, which genuinely sounds like the sound is, well, around you. In short, it will sound great with whatever you use it for. If you're a cam girl, you're gonna love this thing's webcam. It's not the sharpest, but it has great processing and is pretty high res. The microphone is almost studio level quality as well, which is great for anything that uses a microphone. But now for the most important part, performance. Creative applications require quite a bit of power, so can this thin little guy handle all of that? Well, to test its CPU, I ran Cinebench R23, and here it performed wonderfully. The HX370 is a very fast chip, and sits at the top with other thinner gaming laptops in terms of its multi-core performance. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, that RTX 5070 also did very well. 105 watts is plenty for this chip, and it won't really be bottlenecked by its power limits. Now, Geekbench is also supported on Apple's Silicon Macs, so let's compare this thing to its direct competition. In the CPU benchmark, it did very well. For its multi-core performance, it falls somewhere between a desktop Ryzen 7 7800X3D and an i9 14900HX, which are ridiculously fast CPUs. When we compare this to Apple's Silicon scores, it performs about as fast as an M3 Pro MacBook Pro, which again is pretty impressive. Now in the GPU benchmark, it sits somewhere between a desktop 2080 Super and a 3070 Ti. So not too shabby for a laptop. But comparing GPU performance to a MacBook is a little complicated. If an application is supported on Apple Silicon, it runs a lot better on a Mac. But if it's not supported, it runs a lot worse. So if we compare the P16's GPU to a supported application on MacBooks, it sits between an M3 Max and an M2 Max MacBook Pro. But if the app isn't supported on Mac, yeah, this 5070 beats every Mac that currently exists. So you really gotta look up whether the applications that you use are supported on Apple Silicon. Now, I edit all of my videos myself, so I also wanted to test how it did in Adobe Premiere Pro. In a 4K 60 FPS project with some dynamic text on top, with Gaussian blur and magnify effects applied, it ran very smoothly. It didn't drop any frames during playback, and I could very normally scrub through the project with ease. I know this isn't a very scientific test, but in my case, this thing did very well. But most of you guys know me from gaming laptops, so obviously we gotta run some games on this thing, right?
Paco, you are cheating. The last one is...
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down. What they going on?
What did you do, man? No!
And to nobody's surprise, the P16 can play games just fine. Even at its high native resolution of 3K, it ran every game smoothly without hiccups. In Battlefield 6, which only released last month, I had no issues getting high frame rates even when things got busy. Now 8GB of VRAM is becoming a limiting factor when it comes to the newest games. So this might not be the best GPU if you're looking to future-proof yourself. But for now, it plays everything just fine. And as you saw from the benchmarks before that, it also ran every creative application with ease. And you really shouldn't run into any hiccups in even the most intensive applications. So be it Autodesk, C# programming, Blender, or big graphical projects, this thing should handle it all. Just make sure you get enough RAM to back all of that up. But powerful components in a thin body means less space for cooling, which means more heat, right? So how are this guy's temperatures and fan noise? Well, in a very intensive stress test, its CPU did get on the warmer side, but nowhere close to its thermal limit, which is great. And its graphics card stayed nice and cool throughout it all, so this thing is actually cooled really well. But with such a thin body, those fans do need to work a little harder. Yeah, it can get pretty loud during games, but in lighter apps or in idle, it stays pretty quiet. And of course, you can just set it to a lower fan profile, which makes it completely silent. But what about its battery life? Can such a power-hungry laptop survive a full school day? Well, I tested it in two scenarios, under light use and while editing in Premiere Pro. In the light use test, I played a YouTube video until its battery died, with its display at 80% brightness, at 60 Hz, and with its dedicated GPU turned off. And holy moly, does this thing have good battery life. The HX370 chip uses very little power in light tasks, so you can easily take this laptop to class without bringing a charger. This is one of the highest battery lives I've ever tested on a Windows laptop. Now in the editing test, I used the same settings as before, but in the Whisper fan profile with the dedicated GPU turned on. And with that GPU on, it did last quite a bit shorter. Graphics cards are very power-hungry components, so if you need to do heavy stuff in class, it's better to take your charger with you. But what about its upgradeability? Can you change anything on the inside with such a thin body? Yeah, no, unfortunately not. It does have two M.2 SSD slots, so you can easily put an extra drive in there for more storage. And you can also upgrade its Wi-Fi card, which I guess could be handy in the future. but its RAM is completely soldered, so you should really think about which model you're gonna buy. It does have options with 64GB of RAM out of the box though, so it's not limited in that aspect. But did you really think all of this comes for free? Hell no. How much does this thing cost? Well, quite a lot. This model with the RTX 5070 can be found for around $2,600 to $2,700, which is not cheap. When we compare this to its brother, the Zephyrus G16, you can get a whole GPU tier higher for less money, which is pretty crazy. And don't get me started on the higher spec configs of the ProArt. You can buy a nice car for this price. So it's clear you're paying a bit of a premium for that ProArt branding. Just in the same way that basic white shirts from clothing brands are also expensive. But the difference is that this is genuinely a really good product. So now the question is it worth it? Simply put, if you care about looks and if you have the money, then yes, the ProArt P16 is absolutely worth it. This might be the best all-round 16-inch laptop ever. It's got a gorgeous OLED display, the best of the best speakers, some pretty cool features for creators, a thin and light but still sturdy body, and it performs very well with good battery life. If you're a creator or a student and you want the best of the best and you don't want a MacBook, then this thing is perfect. But holy damn, is it expensive. Like I said, this thing is the same price as a Zephyrus G16 with an RTX 5070 Ti. So now the real question is it better than the Zephyrus G16? These two are very similar, but one isn't afraid to show its teeth to the world. So which one is better, the closeted artist or the bright gamer? Well, let's find out in the next video, where I'll be comparing those two head to head in full detail. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Daniel, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Toasted, Eric the Rad, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, Ghost Data, Anugedar, Abdullah and Ravi. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. Oh, and of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.